Good morning and welcome to another episode of the ZMC Business Hour, a business show brought to you by the ZMC Network, a channel dedicated to connecting communities. This week is the final show for 2020. What a year it's been. What a year it's been. Absolutely crazy. Throughout the year, we've had some fantastic guests who've come on the show, some prominent figures from the business community who've come on, shared their knowledge, shared their expertise, particularly in a time like this where businesses were vulnerable, businesses were struggling, and we needed all the help, support, and guidance that we could possibly get. So it's been a great year in terms of our guests, in terms of our shows, and many thanks to all of our viewers who've regularly tuned in. We hope the shows have been of benefit. This morning, we decided to do a 2020 review, a review of this crazy year, a review of what's happened in the business world. We all know what's happened with the pandemic. The economy is in meltdown. And we thought we'd review the year and also possibly try and predict what's going to happen next year, although nobody can tell. So, Saf, thank you for joining us this morning. We had you on. I think you were the very first guest when this show started, and we're delighted to have you back. So, somebody who's a mentor, and I know that you to find the positives in things. 2020, what positives can we draw? Now, Marcelo Glacier from the CNN Opinion said, 2020 shall be a year to be remembered, not just because many will die, but because the COVID-19 pandemic is offering us a chance to reinvent ourselves. And I know that that's something that you're a great fan of, and it's something that you're very passionate about. So what positives can we take from 2020?
Firstly, I will echo exactly what my colleague said. It is a year that has been, and again, you said it right at the beginning. It's a year that you called it crazy, and we hope the year forward will be possibly, hopefully, less crazy. But it has been a monumental year, a year that we won't forget, and a year that we'll probably go back and talk about in the future. We'll be talking to our colleagues. We'll definitely be talking to our family members and so forth. So it'll be a monumental, unforgettable year in many, many ways. I think for me, from a personal perspective, it's both the best out of people, and it's also at the same time probably both the worst out of people as well in many examples. Best in terms of the community, best in terms of how we've been able to support each other, and best in terms of actually being able to see things in a slightly different way. Our perspectives have changed. And worst as well in terms of some of the stuff that we've seen in terms of price hikes on a level, some of the opportunity that we've seen people trying to take advantage of, and also behaviors in shopping. It's a year where we'll see how we've reacted to potential shortages or perceived shortages. It's a year that we can't, hopefully people will realize that we can't take things for granted. We can't take our lives for granted. We can't take our health for granted. We can't take our loved ones for granted. We cannot take anything for granted. And we've got to change our perspective and how we do things. And I'm going to say that, right at the beginning, it's about adaptability. And it's also about hopefully perspective and how we perceive things and how we look at things. And if this year hasn't changed you in some way, then I don't know what will change you, but we all must be able to look at what.
There's a lot of talk about change, and before lockdown, before pandemic, before COVID, businesses were kind of pushing towards working from home. With the whole pandemic, I think this has been forced upon people. This is a prime example of what we're doing right now, doing this interview remotely. Some of us had problems getting, logging on this morning, but we've had to learn and we've had to adopt. People who are not techies have suddenly become techies. People who weren't on social media are now, well, businesses that were on social media have now learned how to use social media, and we are living in a remote world as such, because we've learned that we don't need to jump on a train to go to London for a meeting. We can actually have the meeting remotely from the comfort of your own home.
it's a year which is digital by default.
Yeah.
Linda said it really well in terms of people who are digital literate, who can move over. They've adapted, they've changed. There's certain people who can't, unfortunately, can't do that very quickly or quickly enough, and they're the losers. So there's always going to be winners. There's always going to be losers. There are some people that will be able to adapt, but it's going to take them a little bit longer. And yes, it's been a bumper year for many in terms of particularly the businesses that Linda mentioned, some of the giants in the world. But it's been a bumpy year for a lot of others. And I said it, in terms of information and in terms of ambiguity and actually trying to keep up. It's not a year where it's been all easy and transparent. You talk about right at the beginning, so, in terms of the US and so forth, and fake news, and we were talking about that a couple of years ago. But it's harder to get information or right information, and where your go-tos are.
Okay, and Safar, you're involved in the training for work and getting people back into employment. Now, obviously, we've seen many businesses collapse, many people losing jobs. How important is it at this present moment to retrain yourself and upskill yourself?
I think one of the things that we've got to look at is our core skills. As Amina said, there's an element of information that you have at a point in time. That's knowledge, but it's only specific for that. The core skills that you have are your ability to take information in, to be able to digest it, to actually research. These are your core sort of soft skills, and it's about what your soft skills are. So if you take people like Ninda who have gone into different industries, they've got the ability to analyze, they've got resilience, they've got the ability to actually interpret things and then be able to action. And I think it's that level of soft skills that you have that some people lack. And what we have is people relying on others in terms of information. And whether you're the grant man or whether you're the go-to for information, and it's an element of trying to research, having some quiet time, thinking time, rather than knee-jerk. Let me pick up the phone to somebody else. And people don't do that. They don't actually sit down, research, think. They rather pick the phone up or send a note or WhatsApp message to somebody else, as opposed to actually really calculate where they are, how does that impact, and the awareness. And I think we lack that. And as business owners and as business leaders, we've got to have an element of emotional awareness. You talk about IQ, but it's about emotional awareness and emotional savviness of understanding ourselves better. And if you can understand yourself better, that's your starting point. And for me, that's the key thing here. It's where is your business? And it's not just about digital. So there are some businesses who've done well and who actually realize that because they've got that residual income stream, they've got clients who are paying them on a monthly retainer, or they've got clients that are, once they've got them for life. And it's those businesses who've actually not been affected. They're the businesses that are resilient. And if you've got a model that you can actually business model that you can go into a residual income stream, such as the accountants themselves is a great example. And not all accountants are the same. Some accountants are one-off in a year, and others accountants are monthly support retainers, and then you've got insurance brokers yourself, as you know yourself, and then you've got all the others. As training providers, we've got one-off clients, but we also have retainers and residual clients. And it's about building ecosystems, about being able to look at your verticals and looking at what can you do, and your customer base. What else can I do with them? If you got a customer, and if you've got a customer for one product, you can possibly create another product stream or another element and utilize and go with those customer streams. So it's about looking at it with a different perspective. And we can't take our customers for granted. That's the first thing. And when you've got a customer, and then you can service that customer in a different way. Like Ninder has, he's looked at his customers, last February and said, I've got these clients that I have. They're aware of me. I've got some element of trust. They know what my products are. I've got a base there, and I can pivot my business according to that. Like Amina has with her customers, where she's actually has had to handhold a few more because these are the customers that are gonna hopefully refer her to other customers. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's how, we've got to look at our own businesses in terms of, who our customers are, how much, what products do I have? What other products can I introduce? Can I change some of the products and offer an alternative? And I think it's those elements that you have, and whether it's the skill sets that you may not have, but it's about the awareness. It starts with knowledge and it starts with awareness. You may not have the skill sets, but if you're aware of something, that's your starting point. And I think that's
But
that's the first
do you
thing for
not
me.
feel that with all the negativity and with all the death and with all the illness and with all the cloud above us, that some people may have just clammed up and just didn't have the resilience to kind of take the information in, digest it, and then implement it?
I think there's always going to be those people, and as Ninja said, you use the ostrich example, and you have that. I mean, I think we as a group of people, we are generally, it's about surviving, isn't it? It's about doing what's right and doing and looking ahead. And from our perspective, yes, we go through periods, and we all go through periods where our judgment is cloudy. We've had a battering and so forth, but it's about getting yourself up. Whether it's a knockback in terms of unfortunately, that we can't move. I mean, the first thing Amina said is about COVID. It is about COVID, and it is about the people. It's about the death. It's about the deaths that we've suffered. 70,000 or near about. I think near to that, which is more than the world war. So the figures are astronomical. I mean, if you just look at the year in figures, it's just crazy. Just the numbers that you're talking about, not just in terms of unemployment, but in terms of actually support. Even things like government support for Eat Out and Help Out and all these sort of schemes and innovations that they've created. Everything is just crazy. But you've got to look at, we've got a huge amount of debt as a nation. This debt has to be paid in some elements. We personally, business owners in some cases have got debt as well that we've got to pay off. And you're actually absolutely right in terms of we've got to look ahead, but we've got to look at ourselves first as a starting point.
Thank you. And Safaraz, this whole Brexit thing, I mean, it's gone on for 3-4 years. It's taken up 3 prime ministers. And then, in 2020, when it's been such a tough year anyway, with COVID and with many other things, we've actually come to a deal. What's your views on what the next 12 months looks like, and how will Great Britain or the UK operate being an independent sovereign state?
I mean, I'll start off by echoing exactly what my colleague said. The fact that there is the devil is in the detail. We don't know everything at this moment in time. We're waiting on some information. The things that we are aware of is that there is going to be impact on financial services. Fully agree with that in terms of some of those things. So that's the biggest impact. I think we're all definitely relieved the fact that a deal has happened, and I think there's an element of uncertainty that's been removed. Whether this, as you said earlier on, is probably not the best deal, but with any negotiation, it's a matter of timing. It's a matter of who's holding the cards, and our timing and so forth was being left out. So it's the best deal in terms of the current situation as it was. If it was done in a different time, yeah, maybe we had more options and so forth. There's pluses there, there's minuses there, but we have control, we have sovereignty, we have an element of certainty. Friction is the biggest killer for businesses in terms of bureaucracy, paperwork, and so forth. It's also about getting information as well, and I think this is knowledge. And people who are in this industry, it's about trying to get that information. And where's your go-tos for that? Is it the chambers? Is it who do you go to? Not everybody has the privilege of picking the phone up to our colleagues here, but it's about who is the official go-to. How prepared are they for giving and supporting this information, and and how is that information going to be going to be coming in? Uncertainty, I think, is the first thing in terms of where we are. But you've got to go back in terms of say for example our sector, the skills sector, we get a huge amount of money that comes in from Europe, whether it's through the ESF, European Social Fund. Apprenticeships are part funded by ESF. Most of your skills is funded by ESF. Adult education is funded by ESF. A lot of the construction is money comes in from ESF, and you'll see all these signs: partly funded by the European Social Fund, partly funded by European Regional Development. And it's that money was UK money anyway that used to went and it was money that was coming in, but it was earmarked for those. What's actually happened is now the government has to decide their priorities or what their priorities are, and they've got to negotiate with the devolved areas. And this is now where key for us is about our local leaders and how we negotiate. Just like UK negotiated with Europe, it's about how the West Midlands negotiates now with national government, and how the Greater Manchester area negotiates. And we've got to not only look at how we negotiate, but also how we position ourselves, and how we position ourselves in terms of what our strengths are and how we perceive ourselves in terms of that. I mean, if you look at, I think Linda touched on it earlier on in terms of the high street, the announcement that's been made in terms of how much money is coming into the West Midlands is huge. We've got Walsall being benefiting, we've got Wolverhampton benefiting, places like Tamworth, Nuneaton, Leamington Spa, all benefiting from money that's coming in from national government, and a lot of that depends on how our regional leaders are in that camp. So these West Midlands Combined Authority, we're heavily reliant on them. It's not necessarily even Birmingham City Council. I think they're definitely stakeholders, but it's how we position ourselves as a club within within the country, and how we actually.
But with the high street diminishing now, and with the trends of people purchasing online, do you think the high street will ever go back to what it used to be? Do you think the trend of the high street will be where they used to be?
I mean, the high street is changing, and I think we all know that it's not a new conversation. We've probably been talking about it for 5 years, 10 years, but this year itself, I mean, we've gotten big names disappearing. I mean, Debenhams, Topshop, Burton, Dorothy Perkins. I mean, you can reel them off. Warehouse, Jaeger, Peacocks. I can't even think of some of them. Oasis, Laura Ashley. You can just keep. These high street names.
Our regional leaders, when they negotiate, they've got to bear. I mean, having so much cash injection into a high street is fantastic, but how do you spend that money? Because if retail is going to be down, physical retail is going to be down, and the high street is going to be, vanishing. How are they going to spend that money to build the economy back up again?
Well, high streets were positioning themselves to more for entertainment and hospitality and so forth. So you go to the high street to have the cup of coffee, to have a meeting with people, to maybe go and browse, to leisurely time. And it was about leisure time is about tourism and so forth. But it wasn't necessarily to go and buy that shirt on its own. It was about day out. Go and meet your friends, and it was about taking time out. And this is where the high street was positioning themselves. So if you can't go out now, or that's more difficult, then obviously that is a double whammy. That impact is a lot greater. I mean, look at the impact that's happening in terms of the theatre.
What freedom can we claim when the EU will scrutinise every trade deal we make?
I think that just on that, if I may, I mean, I think Linda is exactly right. I mean, there is a lot of ambiguity there. We've got to a little bit careful about the headlines that are there. Headlines are headlines. They're there to grab attention. We have to look at the context and the narrative behind it. Headline is a headline. You've got to look at the context, the narrative behind it, and actually see what the impact is. I think a lot of it is about competitive advantage. And I think generally nobody wants to see the UK as like a British Virgin Islands, where it's a matter of the rich abusing, because we're all connected to a certain level. I mean, the reason why we're talking about Europe and India and so forth is the world is ever more connected, and we've got to look at what's right as a population as a whole, and not just necessarily what's right for us or a level of people. And I think context is definitely important. There is ambiguity there in terms of information. I think these things will come out. It's too early for us to start, panicking, or for us to start, going on some banner to say, well, because it's just headlines, and I think we've got to move a little bit away from that. I think the point that I will go back in terms of what Amina said is look at ourselves first in terms of the personal aspects of it and the things that you can control. And you've got to, yes, you can, we can get into a position where we start thinking about, so we have to be aware. I'm not saying you've got to be aware, and you've got to be aware of what's going on regionally, nationally, what's going on in your industries, what's going on in your other industries. But we also go back to ourselves and our business and our planning that we can do, and we've got to go back to a little bit more focus as well, a little bit more tunnel focus. There's an element of telescope, but there's also going to be an element of microscope as well. Look at the detail in terms of your own business, look at the details that you can do, and don't get too worried about some of the headlines and so forth. Headlines come and go, stories come and go. It's a good dinner talking point. I mean, we were having a Signature Awards dinner, and we were there. Fantastic talking point. And we long for the day when we get to the next Signature Awards dinner. But it's a fantastic talking point.
With obviously businesses failing, a lot of people getting unemployed, there has been some successes where with new businesses springing up and new concepts springing up. We hope to be at an event, at one of your events, very, very soon. Safaraz, again, thank you very much. 2020 has been absolutely crazy. We wish you all the very best for 2021 and look forward to running our event once again. And to our viewers, thank you for supporting us over the past 12 months. We've had some amazing guests, and thank you to all of my guests who've come on and delivered some incredible value. Next year, 2021, throughout the week, we have various shows, talk shows, political shows, news shows. Please stay tuned in, share our feeds, share our broadcasts, and keep engaged. See you same time, same place next week.